This is CBC Here and Now.
We will be distributing rapid test kits to all students, educators and staff in schools throughout the province.
Back to class in just over a week.
What has to happen before students can go back inside schools?
It involves a partnership between the municipality, in this case the town of Lewisport, the private company Killick Health Services, the Shalloway Family Practice Network, and Central Health.
And we go inside a vaccination clinic in central Newfoundland that's taken a new approach.
We'll tell you about the partnership that made this happen.
A new owner, Carl Diamond, expected to close a deal to buy the Stephenville airport by now, but that hasn't happened yet.
A couple of last minute questions here and there just to make sure we got the paperwork right.
I'll have an update on what's happening right here at the Stephenville airport.
Another nor'easter headed towards the province through the weekend. That means ice, rain, snow, and wind.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. A target date has been set for K-12 students to return to their classrooms in just over a week from now.
The Education Minister says a final decision will be made on Wednesday. What we do know, everyone will be asked to take a rapid test before they return. Here Now's Mark Quinn has that story.
The Education Minister says in-class instruction will likely result in more COVID cases, but the province believes it's extremely important that students return to school.
Since we announced the move to online learning for our K-12 system, we've been consistent in our message. Our priority is to return to in-person, in-class education when it is safe to do so.
A final decision will be made on Wednesday, but before everyone can go back to school, all students, teachers and staff will be required to take 2 rapid tests at home, about 72 hours apart. If classes resume on Monday, January 24th as planned, those first tests should be done on Friday, January 21st, with a second test Monday morning. And schools will be using the honor system, meaning you won't have to show proof of a negative test.
People in this province, by and large, are doing the right thing. They are responsible, and they're helping protect not only themselves but other people in the province. We can't possibly police or monitor every household in the province.
For now, public health officials can't say if parents will be notified if one of their child's classmates tests positive.
All across the country, jurisdictions are looking at this and sort of changing how they approach schools. And we're in the process of looking at what's happening elsewhere, looking at speaking to our own modelling team and looking at how we best deal with contact tracing in a school setting.
Other provinces where students have gone back to school are already seeing staff shortages at those schools and student absenteeism. Minister Osborne says there is no benchmark for deciding if schools will reclose, but he says if such a decision is taken, it will be done in conjunction with public health officials. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
And of course, this is a big announcement for parents who've had to navigate distanced education throughout the pandemic. But not all parents are on the same page. Some are eager for their children to return to class. They're worried about the social and emotional effects of remote learning, while others say heading back to school during Omicron is not worth the risk.
I wasn't terribly surprised. I'm just sort of disappointed. I mean, there's so much we don't know about Omicron and what it can do to anyone, let alone kids. And I've always been more on the side of extra caution than, not enough.
I would have loved for them to be back next week, but I didn't think that was going to happen. So to know that there's a date in place, that's great news.
We have a son, he's in grade 2. You're missing the social aspect of it, but, he is getting that core information that he needs. And it's safe.
The struggle in our house mainly has just been from the social and emotional perspective. My youngest, this started when she was in kindergarten, so she has not yet had a full year of school. since she started. My other daughter was in grade 2 when it started. So grades 2, 3, and 4 have now all been disrupted. Educationally, there has to be some sort of an impact. Do I think it's the end of the world? No, but we won't know, I guess, for a while what kind of an impact it's having on them.
A kid could test negative in the morning and then test positive in the afternoon. This is a very unpredictable virus. It has been from the start. Our experience with it was our son was tested, I think, 3 times. And so we thought we were in the clear. And then on his last test, he tested positive. So, I mean, you never know. You can't really, bet the farm on the fact that somebody who's negative right now might not be positive, and it just might not be showing up.
I have to give major kudos to the teachers that my children have. They have really, made it as good an experience as possible for the kids.
I know someone quoted, dealing with COVID and living with COVID is kind of like, a storm. Well, to me, if we send them back to school before, it's safe, then it's kind of like putting them out in the storm without a coat on.
Well, politicians are also reacting to the new school plan. The Progressive Conservatives say getting kids back in the classroom is important for students, parents, and the province. But they say there should also be an option to continue online learning.
There's also parents and students who are not comfortable right now in going back to in-class learning. So there needs to be some process or some alternative where they can continue their online learning. And that could be looking at the Center for Distance Education to look at how they may be able to offer that to those students at this point.
The NDP, meanwhile, is seeing flaws with the rapid test plan. Each student is going to be provided with a package of 5 rapid tests. The party says that's not nearly enough.
Show me the plan to replace these rapid tests. It will not take a few sniffles, and anyone who's been in a school setting will tell you that it won't take long to blow through them if indeed you're symptomatic and you have to be tested. So what is the plan to make sure that there's enough there as we get through the rest of this school year?
Now, both leaders say rapid tests should also be provided to daycares.
Okay, so let's look at today's numbers. There's another person in hospital tonight. There are now 8 people in hospital due to COVID-19, 3 of them in critical care. There are 520 new confirmed cases today and another 166 cases resulting from samples sent out of province and 13 cases from private testing. There were nearly 1,000 recoveries, which means there are just over 6,100 active cases.
A walk-in vaccination clinic happened today in the town of Lewisport, and while it looked pretty similar for patients, there were some different faces behind the scenes. This clinic was run through a partnership with several different groups who are trying to help out public health, keeping up with the vaccine demand.
So this is a mass vaccination clinic, which differs a little bit from our standard public health clinics, which are by appointment. These clinics are designed for people to walk up and get a vaccine. It involves a partnership between the municipality, in this case the town of Lewisport, the private company Killick Health Services, the Shalloway Family Practice Network, and Central Health. Parental Security is on site to perform some services for us as well. We get together, plan out the event, look at the way patients are going to flow through here, and design a system that's, once we get started, is quite efficient for people. It usually takes them, once we get going, about a half an hour to 40 minutes to fully get through the entire production. Not unlike if you're at a ride at an amusement park. We want to get as many as we can. At our last clinic, we had almost 780 people went through the entire day. So, I mean, we're hoping to get as many as we can here in the Lewisport region, and everybody is welcome to come out today and get their vaccine. The more we get, the better. The more pressure that takes off our public health team. They've been working very, very hard for 2 years. They do need a break, so we're trying to give them a hand with that and trying to, take some of the pressure off that system. It's always been important to get shots in arms. The challenge we have had has been, a lot of it is, at this point, I think our public health team are stretched. They are working so hard, and this is by no means a reflection on them. They don't stop. They work, and you add on another layer of another booster shot on top of all the testing that's come up with Omicron. We're here to help them and to come up with innovative ways to make their job that much easier. That's what we want to do. You know, I think we get a lot of people who are in our older adult bracket. People are coming out. Maybe some of them don't have internet access, can't book online. Maybe some of them just can't get an appointment because there's that much of a demand. I know in Central Health we have about 10,000 appointments this month alone for people to get shots. This clinic is designed to try to help other people who haven't been able to get one online to come out and get their shot in this area. You know, we want to get anybody who can get in there, whether or not you missed your appointment or for whatever reason you were unable to access one. That's what this clinic is for, to try to help out and take that pressure off public health. So we want people to be able to get back to do the things they want to do, have the family gatherings, kids to participate in sport, get back to school and do their learning. That's what we want to do. And doing these clinics, people getting their shots and boosters, that helps us get back to that setting. And I think everybody who participates here today recognizes that. They have family, they have friends, they have loved ones who have been either impacted by the virus in one way, shape, or form, whether that's an impact on their life or maybe they've had the virus themselves. We're doing this because we're here a part of this community, and we want to support our communities and everybody that lives in them.
Another chilly start to the day, but temperatures have warmed up as the day goes on. Let's take a look at what's happening out there weather-wise. We do have an area of low pressure that is prompting, or rather sparking, some showers and or flurries right now. If we take a look at the satellite and radar, you can see that those showers are starting to work their way north. And if we take a look at just where that rain snow line is, it's working its way across the Avalon as we speak. And that will continue tonight. The potential for some flurries will change over to showers as the temperatures continue to warm up. And that's the story as we head through the early morning hours. Now, the rest of the island in Labrador still looking at this chilly temperatures through the night. But those temperatures around -4, -5 in the morning may lead to some freezing rain by the time we get into the morning. And then a busy weekend weather-wise. I'll break the full forecast down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Now to some news from the courts. 2 young men have been charged for a fatal collision on the TCH near Paddy's Pond back in September. A 50-year-old ATV driver, died in that accident. Police believe 21-year-olds Mackenzie Sparrow of Brigus and Eric Shea of St. John's were each driving a vehicle speeding while racing. One had a passenger. The RCMP says one of the drivers lost control and crashed head-on into the ATV, which was traveling on the shoulder of the highway. Each man is charged with dangerous driving causing death, and because one car had an occupant, they're also charged with dangerous driving causing bodily harm.
To the West Coast now, and an update on the Stephenville Airport. An expected sale of the airport hasn't been finalized yet. Carl Diamond announced last fall that he wants to take it over, building a drone manufacturing facility there, and he says creating thousands of jobs. But the airport authority says it has yet to receive a formal offer. Here now's Colleen Connors has the details.
It's quiet here, closed to the public. Last fall, it looked a whole lot different.
We want to make it bigger and better than it ever was.
At a public announcement, Diamond Group of Companies CEO Carl Diamond said he plans to invest $200 million into the airport and the community. He wants to bring back passenger flights to the dormant airport, build a new terminal, and set up a manufacturing facility for large drones that can carry 50,000 pounds of cargo. At the time, Diamond said there was a 120-day grace period to finalize the purchase with the airport corporation. This week, he said that hasn't happened yet, but they are close.
A couple of last-minute questions here and there just to make sure we got the paperwork right. And then we're hoping to have the sign-off in the next week and a half, 2 weeks at the most.
Meanwhile, in a statement to CBC, the Airport Authority chair said there has been no formal purchase offer yet. And their primary concern is to ensure it operates as an airport. Any development plans Diamond has for things like drone manufacturing are secondary. Noting that if any sale is to take place, it's going to be contingent upon all financial obligations being met by the purchaser, and determination that the sale is in the best interests of the corporation. And adding, at this point in time, the ball is squarely in Diamond's court while we await the presentation of a formal offer to purchase.
Well, for us, getting the airport signed off is the big thing. We're looking to do that with minimal fanfare. Like, we just want to sign over. We've done the announcement in September. We're not looking for a second announcement or a ticker tape parade or any balloons falling from the ceiling. We just want to get this signed off and just get to work like we said we were going to.
That work included a promise of temporary hangars that were supposed to be constructed last fall. Supplies are still sitting in boxes, Diamond says, because of pandemic supply delays, but construction is expected to start soon. Well, the future of this closed, quiet airport has been up in the air for years now, and the mayor certainly is holding on to hope and confidence that that could change very soon.
I'm really confident in 2022.
But he is also stressing the importance of being patient as the process continues.
Well, you know, just give it a little time. I know there's a lot of people that would like to move home and repatriate to come to Stephenville in Western Newfoundland. And it might be people from parts of Newfoundland. These are going to be good living wages, good paying jobs, solid, continuous, an aerospace deal for Stephenville.
The Airport Authority Board of Directors is scheduled to meet next week, but there is no word when any deal could be finalized. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Stephenville.
Well, St. John's Zach O'Brien is heading to the ECHL All-Star Classic next week. The Newfoundland Growlers left winger will join the other All-Stars on the ice in Jacksonville on Monday night. The 29-year-old is the lone Growler representing his team, but he will be joined by coach Eric Wellwood. This is O'Brien's first All-Star appearance, and it's thanks to his blazing start to the season, which includes a team-leading 10 goals and 18 assists for a total of 28 points. Well, Peter, one of the world's leading authorities on Dracula has passed away. Memorial University professor and author Elizabeth Miller died at the age of 82.
Descendants of Bram Stoker, the author of the 1897 novel Dracula, say Miller knew more about the Irish author than they did. She wrote several different books on Dracula, edited some as well, and it's a subject that she wrote about for more than a quarter century.
Yeah, in 1994, she spoke with CBC's Midday about why, after all of these years, stories about Dracula can still draw an audience. Here's a bit of that conversation.
Primarily, it's a novel which deals with the other, the marginalized element of society, if you wish, and you can interpret it in many ways. You know, you can look at it as just purely a commentary on the conquest of good over evil, but it's also a novel about repressed sexuality, about the fear of unbridled female sexuality. It's about exploitation. It's about reverse colonization. It's about the end of the century in Victorian England. It's many things. In the English literary tradition, the two of them came out of the same set of circumstances in 1816 with a very famous house party on the shores of Lake Geneva with Lord Byron and the Shelleys. And out of that house party came both Frankenstein, the novel, and the first vampire story in English literature by John Polidori entitled The Vampire. I haven't had a favorite portrayal of Frankenstein. I don't think it's been portrayed, not to my satisfaction. That includes the most recent one as well. As far as Dracula is concerned, I think Gary Oldman is #1 in my books.
Well, we've been no stranger to wind over the last couple of months, and this weekend will be no different. I'll have the full forecast after the break.
Well, if you love winter temperatures, then you might be happy with what Labrador has been facing over the last couple of days. Those are some pretty chilly lows, Ashley.
It really is, and we've had an extreme cold warning in effect for pretty much all this week, and last night was no different. Let's take a look at where you sat in Lab West last night. Minus 37 for Lab City. Same thing for Churchill Falls, and then those temperatures in the minus 20s for the rest of Labrador. Not quite as cold as expected in and across the island. Those temperatures were sitting somewhere between -2 to -7 as your overnight lows. Now temperatures have started to climb up above zero. In fact, 1 to 3 degrees, even 4 degrees in Marystown. That's where you're currently sitting right now. And then those temperatures rebounded up across Labrador as well into the minus 20s this afternoon. Wind chill values out there, though, still fairly chilly. Minus 29 is what it's feeling like in Lab City. That's pretty much the extent of it up across Labrador. The rest of the island still seeing a bit of a wind chill in St. John's, hovering around 0 degrees. Feeling more like -7 right now. So the extreme cold warning has ended for tonight for Lab West, but has been reissued again for Friday night into Saturday, and then the next system moves in, and already prompting some special weather statements for southeastern Labrador and all of the island. And Environment Canada has already issued a rainfall warning. Now this is thanks to a nor'easter that's going to move in. This is kind of the precursor, the weather tonight. We will see some showers continuing for the eastern half of the island with those temperatures around 3 to 5 degrees, and they're going to continue to climb as we head through the morning hours. The rest of the island will be quiet tonight, but below zero. And then again, temperatures, watch what happens in Lab West. They're going to warm up even as you get into the morning hours, about -22 for Lab City. Now temperatures in the morning are going to be flirting with the 0 degree mark pretty much west of the isthmus. So we could see the precipitation start briefly as either snow or freezing rain, and then that line is going to continue to work its way further north as we get into the afternoon. Eventually by mid-afternoon, we're looking at essentially Corner Brook through to Badger and northward is where we're going to see that risk of some freezing rain. Now I mentioned this yesterday, that looks like that cold air is going to stick around for a while. So the potential for freezing rain is certainly there into the afternoon and evening hours. Northern Peninsula, same thing. And we'll start to see that snow across Labrador into the evening hours and continue and get heavy at times as we get into Saturday morning. Now, a lot of rain associated with this one as well, hence that rainfall warning for the southwest. And that heavy rain will continue through a good chunk of Saturday morning, and then heavy snow continuing for Labrador. Now that rain-snow line, which looks like it could either be ice pellets or freezing rain, will set up right along the strait. At least models pointing at that right now. This may change and obviously will be very dependent on the track of the system, but this takes us through right to Saturday morning, and you can see the system doesn't really move too much, or at least that freezing rain line doesn't really move too much. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But as far as rainfall amounts go, ignore the ones to the Northern Peninsula, but to the south, some areas could see around 75 to 100 millimeters of rain, likely falling in the higher elevations, but it's definitely possible. And then we start talking about that potential for freezing rain. So this will be Friday night into Saturday, a really good potential for the Northern Peninsula. But again, depending on the track and where it sets up, we could see that freezing rain potential a little bit further south. Now, as far as snowfall goes, this is accumulation through Saturday evening. We're looking at the highest amounts at this point between 40 and 50 centimeters for the northern or the southeastern portion of Labrador rather. Then look what happens once that area of low pressure tracks further north. Then we start seeing accumulations of about 30 to 40 centimeters for the west coast and even more for Labrador. And then this is when the winds really ramp up. So we're looking at extended periods of winds Saturday morning, already seeing those gusts in the southern portion of the island anywhere from 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. Even further Saturday morning, 80 to 100 kilometers per hour for the eastern half of the island, and then the winds ramp up for Labrador. So this is where we see the heavy winds and rather strong winds, heavy snow. We could see some blizzard conditions, and then by Saturday morning, we're already looking at those winds gusting in some areas for eastern Newfoundland in excess of 100 kilometers per hour. So definitely a storm to keep an eye on. I'll have a little bit more detail when I come back.
Well, as we continue to see hundreds and hundreds of new COVID cases every day, the message from health officials that most people will likely catch COVID at some point is getting closer and closer to reality. But for those with compromised immune systems, it's a terrifying prospect. Joining me now to talk more about this are two people who are immunocompromised. Jeremy Nolan has cystic fibrosis and John Dooling has Berger's disease, a condition that causes serious inflammation in the arms and legs. Thank you both for being here.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Carolyn.
Well, Jeremy, let's start with you. What went through your mind when you heard that officials believe the majority of people will be infected with Omicron at some point?
It was immediately terrifying because the outbreak has been this one especially has been really hard because the amount of cases, obviously, and the infection rate. So the fact that they feel that anyone can get it, and it feels a bit. It feels like it's excluding the people that can't afford to get it.
How so?
It didn't seem to take into account that people can't get it. If they get it, they could, like myself, could easily die from it. So it's. To be left out of the conversation in that sense was a bit hurtful and just challenging. Gave me a bout of anxiety for sure.
Yeah. And John, just to go to you, there are some people out there who kind of shrug their shoulders at the idea of catching Omicron. They're confident their body can just fight it. It'll be like having a mild cold. What's your concern with that attitude and that approach?
Well, I've never been a gambling person, and especially since I've had this diagnosis. I haven't had a definitive answer whether it's going to affect me. From what I read with other people with vascular diseases, it can basically just turn everything up to 11 and cause these things, the symptoms and the repercussions of this disease to happen, the onset faster.
What is your biggest fear about catching COVID?
Well, it's not really about like death or anything like that. I feel like I'm in an age group that that I could fear it well, and I'm in double vaxxed. I'm waiting on my third vax, my booster here now. But like I said, if this, say, just fast tracks my current disease, then I could have to get amputated, my feet first, as they're the worst currently, and then we'll move on to my hands.
It's very, very serious stuff. What went through your mind when you heard officials say that most people will probably catch this?
Well, once again, I'm not much of a gambler, and I look at it like that. As just much there's a chance to win, there's a big chance to lose, and there's people in this province that they're at high risk. And to say that, like, just to let it kind of burn through, the population is, to me, says those people are an acceptable loss, or either that, or we're just plain not thinking about them.
And Jeremy, what kind of message would you have for people who may be a bit more cavalier about the spread of this virus now that we're being told that we'll all get it at some point?
At the beginning of this pandemic, we really were ensuring to protect vulnerable people, and we are all seeming to come together with compassion and care for everyone involved in this because it affects everyone. But I'd just like to see that compassion come back. I think that we're 2 years into this and people have got complacent, or they have just turned their shoulder to it, so I would like to see that original we're all in this together, we have to take care of everyone come back, because it is needed now more than ever, especially with the infectious Omicron variant.
Has your life changed at all since Omicron surfaced and case numbers skyrocketed? Now that this highly infectious variant is out there, has that changed how you live your day-to-day life?
Yeah, well, I've barely left my house, I guess going for walks maybe, but yeah, I've really completely cut cut my contacts down to just my family, my household, and my bubble. So it's been, mental health wise, we've all gone through this a few times, but yeah, this one feels different and particularly threatening, I guess, with the infection rate of it.
Well, Jeremy Nolan and John Dooling, thank you so much for shining a light on all of this and putting a face to this topic, and for being so open. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Be able to see to roughly 13.5 billion years ago. So we're going to be looking at how the universe was forming right after the Big Bang, which is quite exciting.
Even more exciting, from an office right here in St. John's, Bethany Downer is monitoring the Webb telescope for the European Space Agency.
She chats with Chrissy Holmes and tells her all about it. That's coming up.
The James Webb telescope is now making its way into deep space, 1 million miles from Earth.
Launched on Christmas Day, Webb will be 100 times as powerful as the Hubble telescope, and scientists hope it will be able to answer some of astronomy's greatest questions. But before we go there, let's bring it back down to Earth. Here in St. John's, Bethany Downer is keeping a close eye on Webb. She's with the European Space Agency, who, along with NASA and the Canadian Space Agency, helped launch the mission. Bethany, I guess congratulations are in order. These are exciting times. Tell us about your role and the work you're doing these days.
Absolutely. I'm one of many, many people around the world that's taking a deep sigh of relief that everything has gone to plan so far. I'm very honored to be part of the James Webb Space Telescope on behalf of the European Space Agency as the Chief Science Communications Officer. So I have the sincere pleasure of coordinating, bringing the science to the broader audiences, like the public. So in the same way we do for the Hubble Space Telescope, in a few months' time, we'll start bringing the science discoveries and the beautiful images to the public. So we're really excited now that the launch has taken place, everything's going to plan, and we're just excited for what's next.
Well, speaking of that, the Webb is the successor to the Hubble, and we've talked to you about that telescope before. So what more will Webb be able to tell us that Hubble couldn't?
Absolutely. So Hubble is not going anywhere. It's not being replaced by James Webb. I like to say that they're going to work in tandem. They're complementing each other. Hubble works a lot like our own eyes do. It operates in the optical part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So when we see beautiful images from Hubble, it's a lot like we see that from our own eyes. Instead, James Webb will be focusing on the infrared part of the spectrum. So when they're looking at two objects that are the same, by the different telescopes, they will look different because they're both looking from different parts of the spectrum. So by looking in the infrared, James Webb will be able to peer through all the dust and gas that often impedes what we can see with Hubble, and we'll be able to see much, much further. So we're going to be able to watch the first galaxies and planets being formed roughly 13.5 billion years ago. So it's a bit like a time machine in that way. So we almost have no idea what's to come. We have no idea. When Hubble launched, we had no idea what we'd be able to do with it. So in the same way, there's a lot for us to discover with James Webb too.
I have to pick up on that last line. It's a bit like a time machine for most of us. That is a huge concept to wrap our head around. Can you explain that to us? What exactly is it doing?
So the light, well, because space is just that big, it takes light a really long time to get to us, even though it's traveling really, really fast. So because James Webb is operating in the infrared and its mirror is much bigger than Hubble's, it will be able to see to roughly 13.5 billion years ago. So that's how much time it's taken for that light to get to us. So in that way, we're almost seeing things as it used to be. We're not seeing them as they are right now because that's how much time it's taken for the light from those early galaxies to get to us. So we're going to be looking at how the universe was forming right after the Big Bang, which is quite exciting.
You just made that sound really simple, by the way, so I understand why you're a science communicator. So looking into the past is one thing, but I mean, tell us about what it's looking for that could impact us in the future as well.
Definitely. Well, one thing we always like to mention is that we'll be looking at exoplanets, and that just means planets that are beyond our own solar system. When the Hubble Space Telescope launched, we only had concrete proof of the planets in our own solar system. We didn't even know of those out there. We didn't have any concrete proof, and today we have evidence of at least 4,000. Hubble's been able to tell us which ones are of interest, because there might be some elements that we're curious about that could be signs of life in the way that we know it. And in that way, James Webb can actually study the atmospheres of these planets. So it's taking everything that Hubble's done and taking it even further when it comes to the science that we'll be able to do.
On a personal note, Bethany, I mean, you weren't even born when the Hubble telescope was launched. What is this moment like for you and to be part of this Webb mission?
When I sit back and think about it, I do get a bit emotional. When I was a kid, I used to cut up old calendars from the Hubble telescope and plaster them all around my room. And now I'm responsible for making that calendar every year for Hubble. And I'm just thinking about what James Webb will do, what it will tell us. I'm just grateful that I'm able to have a job where I can talk about space all the time. And I'm very grateful to have this role. And I just want to bring space to more people because I think it's such an exciting career path. It's exciting for us to learn about. So on a personal level, it's been quite special. Canada did have a role in this as well, and there'll be many Canadian scientists that will be able to use Webb's observation time to be able to look through the telescope and to study different objects. And we already know what the first year of observations will be for James Webb, so we're excited to see the Canadian observations that are going to come through.
It's so interesting that you've been doing all of your work, of course, in the middle of the pandemic for the European Space Agency from your home office, the HQ in St. John's. Tell us about that.
So one thing that the pandemic has shown us is that remote work is feasible, it's possible, and it's effective. I moved home from Europe right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've been here ever since, working from my home in downtown St. John's, which has been absolutely great. I'm glad that I've been able to call this home, but also being able to work for my dream job while still living at home.
I understand the ride isn't over just yet. When will Webb be out of the woods, so to speak, and you're going to be able to breathe a sigh of relief?
So there was 344 single points of failure for James Webb to get to where it needs to go. Roughly 200 of them were involved in the deployment and the unfolding of the telescope. Because it was just that big, it had to be folded into the nose cone of the rocket. So those have taken place over the past 2 weeks, and everything's gone to plan so far. But now comes the really delicate work of calibrating the mirrors, the instruments, and testing. So we won't see the first images for roughly 200 days after launch, so we can expect around July. There will be a big campaign around the world for James Webb's first images. So I'm excited to be able to see and to share what those are going to be in a few months' time.
We're so looking forward to hearing more. Bethany, congratulations, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
The royal family appears to be distancing itself from Prince Andrew. Today, the prince handed back all of his honorary military affiliations and royal patronages to the Queen. This follows yesterday's decision by a judge in New York to allow a sexual assault lawsuit against the prince to proceed. Buckingham Palace made the announcement in a short release, which says the move was made with the approval and agreement of the Queen. It goes on to say that Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, will remain out of the public eye and will not undertake any public duties. And he'll be defending himself in the lawsuit as a private citizen. Prince Andrew has been accused by Victoria Giuffre of sexually assaulting her on at least 3 occasions when she was 17 years old. She says she was trafficked to the prince by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Well, there are some dedicated cyclists out there who simply will not let winter weather interfere with their passion. And then there are those who simply want to go for a little ride and enjoy the sights. And now there's an opportunity to combine those two things in a place that has a reputation for its winters. Have a look.
This is the classic ice bike. It has the one rubber tire at the back, and in the front is the 2 blades are right next to each other, so it almost acts as one blade, right connected to the steering wheel. What's really interesting about this bike compared to what you have is it actually has a longer bench with a little bit of backrest. You could actually have an adult and a child or an older, younger adult, I guess, sit on the back. So there are these 2 little wheel or footrests right by the wheel.
So we have these 2 bikes here. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, it's not too bad at all.
Yeah, and you can even see me, like, I'm leaning right now on one side.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm trying to balance, but again, if you're trying to, you might find that you're a bit wobbly, but otherwise you can just have it leaning on the side, and yeah, it's very comfortable, and you can chat, you can meet up with people and just enjoy winter in a different way.
It's a wide turn on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, this one you can do a bit more of a sharper turn.
Yeah. I was worried I was going to wipe out, but I'm glad that it's that there's 2 skis on this one. Well, that was a ton of fun. Thank you so much for letting me try this out.
Well, one of the world's most endangered animals has a new baby cub, and it made its grand entry into the public eye this weekend in England. This is a rare Sumatran tiger cub taking its very first wobbly steps outside yesterday at the London Zoo. The video shows the month-old cub being carried by the scruff of the neck there around the enclosure before being scooped up, as you can see there, by its mother, Geisha. Zookeepers discovered the yet unnamed cub's gender, or they will discover it in a couple weeks' time. That's when this little feller, or gal, has its first checkup. Sumatran tigers are one of the most endangered species on Earth. It's estimated that only 300 of them remain in the wild in Indonesia.
Oh, adorable. Well, Peter, the first lockdown, it seemed like everyone was into making sourdough bread, and this lockdown, it seems like everyone is into Wordle.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a new online game that's really become a sensation, especially on social media. And as Aaron Collins reports, it's also seen by many as an ideal pandemic pastime.
For millions around the world, this is a new part of their daily routine.
That's not how you spell vapor, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
Wordle. 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word, but the online game has a catch. Just 1 word, 1 puzzle per day.
It's almost like that economy of not having too much, right? Just giving you a little bit of a snippet.
At this board game cafe, Wordle's concept immediately familiar.
It seems like it's based on like a really old game like Mastermind and Boggle, but it's like mashed up together.
A new take on older games, but some enigmatologists, that's a puzzle expert, say it's a perfect fit for the pandemic.
It's like, okay, this is my new ritual every morning. Maybe it's my cup of coffee and just kind of doing this. Okay, I'm ready for this. I did really well. I'm ready to do my work at home, or I'm ready to kind of go on with my day.
Of course, before players do that, many brag online to friends and family about how they did.
And as soon as you share your results, everyone's like, oh, hey, I could try that. And how come it took me 6 tries? And, how are you doing this?
You feel like you're part of this bigger thing because I know it's taken off.
Wordle got so big, copycat games began to spring up. Apple stepped in, removing them from its app store, ensuring Wordle fans will still be limited to 1 word per day. A way to help weather the pandemic, according to this gaming expert.
Break a negative cognitive thinking state that you're in and distract yourself for a short while with something that can help you enter a more positive state.
Well, back at the cafe, that idea rings true.
What's the alternative? Just being at home watching Netflix? Like, you can only do that for so long until you kind of go crazy and you run out of stuff to play, right?
It turns out games is a 5-letter word helping many navigate these complex times. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
Okay, so Carolyn, have you managed to give it a try yet?
Yeah, for the first time this afternoon.
Okay, good. Maybe you can help me, because I put in lucky as my first word here, and I know I've got 1 letter right at the end, but I may end up having to use all my tries here.
I got lucky today when I tried it. My second guess was maybe, and the word today was Abby. So
spoiler alert, what if people haven't done their Wordle today?
Sorry, everyone.
Well, now
I ruined today's Wordle.
If anyone gets it in 1 try, we know Carolyn gave them a bit of help.
You can thank me.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the provincial plow tracker with the NL 511 app.
Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're looking at a pretty busy weekend weather-wise. Let's jump right into the forecast for tomorrow. Looks like we're going to see that warm up for the Avalon, or rather the whole island, through the day tomorrow, with potentially starting as either freezing rain or flurries, and then right over to rain as those temperatures climb up above 0 for a good chunk of the island. Now, the northern peninsula, things get a little bit more dicey. We're looking at the chance of some freezing rain and even some snow in the forecast as well. Now, Labrador, temperatures are going to warm up compared to what they have been for the last couple of days, but Mary's Harbour will see that high in and around -4, and you're going to see your snow start in the evening hours. And here's a look at that Friday evening as that area of low pressure starts to get a little bit closer. We're looking at that potential for some freezing rain at this point, according to this model, right along the strait, and anything south of that will fall as rain through the day on Saturday, but some pretty heavy accumulation snowfall wise for Labrador as we head through Saturday afternoon. Now, as far as temperatures go, we are looking at them falling through the day. So they should reach anywhere from 7 to 9 degrees for the western half of the island, and then drop as the system continues to track a little bit further north and we wrap around some of that colder air. And then as we get through Saturday evening into Sunday morning and the low tracks even further north, then we start talking about some significant snowfall amounts for the west coast. That, combined with windy conditions, means things will be a little bit gnarly out there into the afternoon and evening hours on Sunday. So definitely not a good weekend to travel if you are doing so. And there's the temperatures I was talking about. So back down well below 0 on Sunday. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, with those winds, we're looking at winds gusting in some areas upwards of 80, even 100 kilometers per hour. And some places, certainly in the exposed areas, may see those winds gusting as high as 120 kilometers per hour. So this is the snowfall amount. We'll go through it one more time. 40 to 50 centimeters by Saturday night for Labrador, and then as the system moves further north, you're looking at even more accumulation. Some areas could see in excess of 60 centimeters, but then 30 to 40 centimeters for parts of the west coast. Once we get into Monday, things will settle down a little bit. We're looking at a mix of sun and cloud, and then another warm up on Tuesday. Temperatures back up above zero. Same thing through western and central Newfoundland, and then for the northern peninsula, or rather the Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures climbing by Tuesday, and then some more snow in the forecast as well. Had to share this photo. It's a good one. In winter in Fermuse. Thank you to Brian for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Gorgeous winter shot.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for us for this Thursday evening. Tomorrow's Friday, Peter.
Yes, it is.
Almost the weekend.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.